A billionaire returned home early and saw Maid's daughter hurt. One command ended the marriage. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into today's incredible story. A billionaire named Robert Harrington had everything anyone could dream of: a massive mansion, luxurious cars, and the kind of wealth that allowed him to never worry about money. But despite all the material success, his personal life was a different story. Robert had been married to Susan for over 15 years, a woman who seemed perfect on the surface, beautiful, poised, and charming. However, behind the scenes, their marriage was falling apart. Susan's coldness toward Robert grew with each passing day, and the couple found themselves drifting further apart. But Robert never imagined that returning home early one day would be the turning point of his entire life. On this particular afternoon, Robert decided to leave work early. His company, Harrington Enterprises, was booming, and he had spent the past few weeks in back-to-back meetings. He needed a break. He entered his home quietly, thinking he would surprise Susan with a nice evening. But what he walked into would shock him to his core. As he entered the foyer, he heard the faint sound of sobbing. His heart sank, and he followed the sound to the source. It was coming from the grand dining room. There, in the center of the room, sat his wife Susan, her back to him, a look of fury in her eyes. But what made his blood run cold was the figure kneeling beside her, his maid's daughter, Lily. Lily was only 13 years old, a sweet, quiet girl who helped around the house whenever her mother, the maid, was busy. Robert had always thought of her as a harmless presence in his home, someone who just quietly went about her work. But today, something was terribly wrong. Lily was on the floor, her knees bruised and her face streaked with tears. Her hands trembled as she tried to get up. Susan was standing over her, her voice harsh and filled with disgust. "You useless little thing. Can't you do anything right? Look at what you've done," Susan yelled, pointing to the shattered vase that lay at their feet. It was an antique, a family heirloom that Robert had inherited from his grandmother. Lily, in her attempt to clean the table, had accidentally knocked it over. But Robert couldn't understand the level of cruelty that Susan was showing to the girl. He had never seen her like this before. His heart raced, and without thinking, he stepped forward. "What's going on here?" he demanded, his voice cutting through the tension in the room. Susan quickly turned around, her expression shifting to one of feigned innocence. "Robert, I didn't know you were home," she said, forcing a smile. "I'm just trying to teach this girl some discipline. She broke something important, and now she's crying like a little child." But Robert wasn't buying it. He saw the fear in Lily's eyes and the way she flinched every time Susan raised her voice. It made his blood boil. He looked at Susan, his eyes narrowing. "Enough, Susan," he said, his tone firm and unwavering. "I want you to leave the room now." Susan's eyes widened in shock. "What? Are you serious? You're taking her side over mine?" she spat. Robert didn't flinch. "Yes, I am," he replied. "You're done here. I want you to pack your things and leave. Now." The room was silent for a moment as Susan stood frozen in disbelief. This wasn't the reaction she had expected. She opened her mouth to argue, but Robert was already walking toward Lily, kneeling beside her. He placed a hand on her shoulder, gently lifting her up. "I'm sorry you had to go through this, Lily. I won't let anyone treat you like that again," he said softly, his voice full of sincerity. As he turned toward the door, his mind raced. He had just made the hardest decision of his life, and yet he felt a sense of clarity wash over him. He had chosen the right thing. He would never let his wealth and power blind him to the suffering of others again. And as for Susan, their marriage had been broken long before today. This was the final straw. Susan's departure was just the beginning of a new chapter, one where justice was finally being served. The command that ended the marriage was just the beginning of a deeper transformation for Robert and the people in his life. The silence in the room was deafening after Robert's command. Susan stood frozen, her expression one of disbelief. For the first time in years, Robert felt something he had never expected to experience in his marriage: clarity. Susan, the woman he had once adored, stood before him, her anger and confusion written all over her face. He had given her everything: wealth, luxury, status, and in return, he had received nothing but disdain and neglect. But it was Lily, the young maid's daughter, who had opened his eyes to the truth of his marriage. Robert turned his gaze toward Lily, who was still standing in the corner of the room, looking small and vulnerable. He could see the fear in her eyes, but there was something else there, something he had never noticed before: strength. Lily had endured the cruelty of his wife without ever speaking up, without ever complaining. She had been the silent witness to the breakdown of a marriage that was never meant to be. Robert slowly walked toward her, his heart heavy with regret. "Lily," he said softly, his voice full of empathy, "you don't deserve any of this. I am so sorry for what you've been through." Lily looked up at him, her eyes wide with surprise. She had never heard him speak to her this way before. "Thank you, Mr. Harrington," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I didn't want to cause trouble. I just wanted to help." Robert knelt down beside her, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. "You've done nothing wrong," he said firmly. "It's my fault. I should have seen what was happening, but I was blinded by my own world. I promise, things will be different from now on." Lily nodded, a faint smile appearing on her face. For the first time in a long while, she felt a sense of relief. The weight of the last few weeks, the fear of what might happen if Robert ever found out, began to lift. As Robert stood up, he turned back to Susan, who was still standing in shock. "Susan, this marriage is over," he said, his voice steady but resolute. "I will not tolerate this behavior any longer. I've let it go on for far too long, but I can't ignore it anymore. You're not the person I thought you were, and I can't live in this lie any longer." Susan's eyes filled with rage. "You're going to throw me out over a little incident with the maid's daughter?" she spat. "You're pathetic, Robert. Do you really think this will change anything?" Robert didn't flinch. "No, Susan. It's not just the incident. It's everything. The lies, the disrespect, the way you've treated me and everyone else in this house. I've had enough." Susan stepped forward, her voice rising. "You're making a mistake, Robert. You'll regret this." But Robert didn't respond. He had made his decision. He turned away from her, walking toward the door. "I've already made my decision, Susan," he said, his voice cold and final. "It's time for you to leave." Susan stood there for a moment, seething with anger, but she knew there was no turning back. Her world, built on manipulation and control, had just crumbled. As she grabbed her things and stormed out of the house, Robert felt an overwhelming sense of relief. The storm had passed, and for the first time in years, he felt free. But his freedom came at a cost. He had lost his wife, but in doing so, he had gained something far more valuable: the truth. Robert turned to Lily, who was still standing by his side. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice softening. Lily nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "I am now," she said quietly. "Thank you, Mr. Harrington. I never thought someone would stand up for me." Robert smiled at her, the weight of the situation sinking in. "You deserve to be treated with respect, Lily. Don't ever let anyone make you feel less than you are. And from now on, I'll make sure you're treated with the kindness you deserve." As the door closed behind Susan, Robert knew that this moment would change everything. His life had been turned upside down, but in the process, he had found the strength to do what was right. And for Lily, he promised that things would be different from now on. The next few days felt like a whirlwind for Robert. He had made the hardest decision of his life, but deep down, he knew it was the right one. Susan was gone, and the house felt quieter, emptier. Without her constant presence, Robert spent the following days reflecting on everything that had led him to this point. He had been living a lie for far too long, trapped in a marriage that was built on pretenses, not love. As the dust settled, Robert found himself focusing more on Lily, the young maid's daughter who had become the catalyst for his change. He had seen her as nothing more than a background figure in his life, someone who quietly did her job without drawing attention to herself. But now, he saw her differently. She had shown courage that he himself had lacked for years. The events of the past week had shaken him to his core, and he was determined to make things right. One evening, as Robert sat in the library, staring at the family photos that lined the walls, his thoughts turned to Lily. She had been through so much, yet she had never complained. He had no idea what her life was like outside the mansion, but he knew it couldn't have been easy. Robert stood up, walking to the window that overlooked the garden. The evening sky was tinged with orange, and the soft breeze rustled the trees. He realized that he had never truly taken the time to get to know the people who worked for him. They had always been invisible, just like Lily had been, but no longer. The next morning, Robert called Lily into his office. She stood nervously by the door, her eyes cast downward. "Come in, Lily," Robert said, his voice soft. Lily stepped inside, hesitating for a moment before she took a seat in the chair across from Robert's desk. "How are you doing?" Robert asked, his tone genuine. Lily looked up at him, surprised by the question. "I'm fine, sir," she replied quietly. Robert smiled warmly. "I don't want you to ever feel like you're just here to clean or do chores. I want you to know that you are valued." Lily's eyes widened. She had never heard him speak to her like this before. "You've been through a lot, and I want to make sure you're treated with the respect you deserve," Robert continued. "From now on, you won't be treated like an outsider in this house. You're a part of this family." Lily didn't know how to respond. She had never expected such kindness from someone like Robert. Her heart swelled with gratitude, but she didn't want to show too much emotion. "Thank you, Mr. Harrington," she whispered. Robert nodded, his expression serious. "I mean it, Lily. If there's anything you need, anything at all, you come to me. Don't ever feel like you're alone." For the first time in a long while, Lily felt seen. She had always felt like an invisible shadow in the house, but now she knew she mattered. Over the next few weeks, Robert made an effort to include Lily in more than just the daily chores. He invited her to dinner with him, something he had never done with any of his staff before. It was small, but it meant the world to Lily. As their relationship grew, Robert learned more about Lily's life. She told him about her mother's struggles and how they had moved from place to place, never staying in one place for too long. Robert could see the pain in her eyes as she spoke about her past, but he also saw something else, strength. Lily had never let her circumstances define her. She had endured more than most people could ever imagine, and yet she remained kind, humble, and hardworking. It was a quality that Robert deeply admired. One evening, as Robert and Lily were walking through the garden after dinner, he stopped and looked at her. "I've been thinking, Lily," he said, his voice thoughtful. "You have a bright future ahead of you, and I want to make sure you have the opportunities you deserve." Lily looked up at him, confused. "What do you mean, sir?" she asked. Robert smiled. "I want to help you get an education. You deserve to have the same opportunities as anyone else. I'll make sure you go to a good school, and I'll do whatever it takes to make sure you succeed." Lily's eyes filled with tears. She had never imagined a life like this for herself. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice cracking. Robert nodded, his expression softening. "You've earned it, Lily. You've shown me what it means to be strong, and that's something no one can take away from you." As the days passed, Robert continued to support Lily in every way he could. He arranged for her to attend a prestigious school, and he made sure she had everything she needed to succeed. But, more than that, he gave her the one thing she had never had before, a sense of belonging. Lily was no longer just a maid's daughter. She was part of something bigger, part of a family that cared for her and believed in her. For Robert, the changes he had made in his life were just the beginning. He had started to see the world differently, and he was determined to make sure that no one was ever made to feel invisible again. As weeks went by, Robert felt a deep sense of peace that he hadn't experienced in years. Life had become quieter and more purposeful, with every decision now grounded in the belief that kindness and respect should guide his actions. Lily was thriving in her new school, and Robert made sure she had everything she needed. He stayed in touch with her teachers, encouraging her to keep up with her studies, and personally made time to sit down with her each week to talk about her dreams. One evening, as the sun began to set over the vast estate, Robert and Lily sat together on the balcony of his office, the view stretching out over the meticulously maintained grounds. Lily was telling him about a history project she was working on, her face lighting up as she described the ancient civilizations she had been studying. For the first time, Robert realized how much potential Lily had, and how much she had yet to accomplish. "I can't believe how much I've learned already," Lily said, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "I feel like there's so much more to discover." Robert smiled, proud of her progress. "You're going to do great things, Lily. I can see that in you," he said. Lily looked at him, her expression softening. "Thank you for everything, Mr. Harrington," she said quietly. "You don't know how much this means to me. I never thought I'd have a chance like this." Robert's smile faded for a moment. You deserve it all, Lily. You've worked hard, and you've shown me more courage than I ever thought possible. I'm just giving you the chance to reach your full potential. As the days passed, Robert found himself reflecting more and more on the impact of his actions. The decision to stand up for Lily had changed not just her life, but his as well. He had spent so much of his life focusing on business and wealth, and it had taken a young girl to show him the importance of human connection and the power of empathy. It wasn't just about money or success anymore. It was about making a difference in the lives of the people around him. One afternoon, Robert received a call from his lawyer. There had been some developments regarding the divorce from Susan. As expected, it was a messy and contentious process, but Robert had been determined to handle it with dignity. He didn't want Susan's departure to affect the stability of the house or Lily's future. After all, this house wasn't just a place to live. It was meant to be a sanctuary for those who had no voice. That evening, after finishing a long day of work, Robert sat in his study, reviewing the papers in front of him. He was interrupted by a quiet knock on the door. "Come in," he called, not looking up from the papers. It was Lily. She had been spending more time in the study lately, reading or working on assignments. But tonight there was something different in her eyes. "Mr. Harrington," she began, her voice soft but steady. "I just wanted to thank you again for everything you've done for me. I know things are different now, and it's all because of you." Robert looked up, his eyes meeting hers. "Lily, you don't need to thank me. I've only done what anyone should do." Lily shook her head, her expression sincere. "No, it's more than that. You've made me believe in something bigger than just survival. You've given me a chance to have a future, a real future." Robert stood up, walking over to her. He placed a hand on her shoulder. "You've earned it, Lily. You're capable of achieving more than you even realize right now." The room was quiet for a moment, the weight of their words hanging in the air. Lily looked at him with newfound confidence. "I'm going to do my best," she said. "I promise I won't waste this opportunity." Robert smiled, feeling a warmth in his chest that he hadn't felt in years. It was more than pride. It was a sense of hope. He had made the right decision, not just for Lily, but for himself as well. As the weeks went by, Robert continued to help Lily navigate the challenges that came with her new life. But the changes didn't stop there. Robert also began to pay more attention to the needs of the other staff around the estate. No longer would they be invisible. He made it a priority to ensure that everyone in his home felt valued, seen, and heard. The ripple effects of his decision to stand up for Lily were evident everywhere he looked. His employees, once just faces in the background, now had a voice. Robert was determined to foster an environment where kindness and respect were the foundation, not just within his home, but in every aspect of his life. The transformation that had started with one small act of kindness had grown into something much bigger. And for the first time in a long while, Robert felt that the future was bright for everyone around him. Weeks passed, and life at the mansion gradually began to feel more balanced. Robert's decision to make his house a place of kindness and respect had ripple effects throughout the estate. Lily's progress in school continued to impress him, and Robert began to see the quiet strength that had always been there within her. She was no longer the shy, invisible maid's daughter. She was becoming a young woman with ambition and purpose. One evening, as Robert sat in the garden reading a book, Lily approached him. Her face was full of excitement, and Robert immediately knew something was different. "Mr. Harrington, I got the highest score in my history class," she exclaimed, her eyes wide with pride. Robert put down his book and smiled. "That's fantastic, Lily. I knew you could do it." Lily beamed, sitting next to him on the bench. "I've been working so hard, and I feel like everything is starting to come together. I never thought I could achieve something like this." Robert placed a hand on her shoulder, a proud glint in his eyes. "You've always had it in you, Lily. It's just a matter of believing in yourself. I'm glad you're seeing it now." Over the following months, Lily's confidence grew, and she continued to excel in school. Robert was constantly amazed at how quickly she was catching up and how determined she was to make the most of the opportunities she had been given. She was beginning to dream bigger. One afternoon, Lily came to Robert with a request. "Mr. Harrington," she began hesitantly, "I've been thinking a lot about my future. I want to go to college. I want to study history and become a historian." Robert was taken aback by her request, but also deeply moved. It was a big step, one that would require a lot of work, but he could see how much it meant to her. "Of course, Lily," he said without hesitation. I will make sure you get the education you need. You have my full support. Over the next year, Robert took a more active role in helping Lily plan for her future. He reached out to top universities, and he arranged for her to visit campuses. He even made sure that Lily had access to the best tutors and resources to help her succeed. He was determined to give her every chance to succeed. As the year went on, Robert began to feel a deeper sense of purpose in his own life. The house, once cold and impersonal, had transformed into a home filled with laughter and love. Lily was no longer just a member of the staff. She was family. And Robert knew that this decision, this one act of standing up for her, had changed everything. One evening, Robert and Lily sat down in the study together, discussing her college applications. She was nervous but excited about the future. I can't believe I'm really doing this, Lily said, her voice full of wonder. It feels so surreal. Robert smiled warmly. You've worked for this, Lily. You deserve it. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of their journey together settling in. Robert realized that he had found a new sense of meaning in his life. He had been so focused on business and success for so many years, but now, his life had a deeper purpose. It was no longer about the mansion, the wealth, or the power. It was about the people who mattered most to him. And Lily, the young girl who had started as an invisible figure in his life, had now become the person who gave him a reason to wake up every day with a sense of purpose. The next morning, Lily received the news she had been waiting for. She had been accepted into one of the best universities in the country. She couldn't believe it. Her dream was becoming a reality, and she knew that none of this would have been possible without Robert's belief in her. As she ran to share the news with Robert, she found him in his office, looking over some papers. Mr. Harrington, I did it, Lily exclaimed. I got in. I'm going to college. Robert looked up from his papers, his eyes filled with pride. I knew you would, Lily. You're going to do great things. They both stood there for a moment, the enormity of the moment sinking in. Robert had given Lily a chance that most people never get. And as she looked at him, she realized that her life was no longer defined by her past or her circumstances. It was defined by the future she was now building, one where she could truly be herself. For the first time, she felt free. And for Robert, that was enough. His life had come full circle, and he knew that he had made the right choice. He had given someone the chance to change their life, and in doing so, had changed his own. Months passed, and the changes in Robert's life continued to unfold in unexpected ways. Lily had settled into college life, excelling in her studies and beginning to carve out a future that seemed impossible just a year ago. Robert kept in touch with her, always encouraging her, and watching with pride as she flourished. But as Lily's life took off, Robert found himself facing a new challenge, one he hadn't anticipated. The company, Harrington Enterprises, was in the middle of a major expansion. Robert's influence and decisions affected more than just his personal life now. Every move he made had the potential to shape entire industries. He was no longer just a billionaire with wealth. He was a man with power, and that power was something he couldn't ignore. But as the pressure mounted, Robert began to notice that he was slipping back into his old ways. The relentless focus on business, on success, on building his empire began to consume him again. He found himself spending long hours in the office, just like before, pushing the limits of what he could achieve. It was a part of him he had tried to leave behind. He had promised Lily he would change, that he would make sure she had a better future, one built on respect and opportunity. But now, he was seeing how easily he could lose sight of what mattered most. One evening, after a particularly long day of meetings, Robert sat alone in his office, staring out at the city lights. The view from his office was breathtaking, but it no longer brought him the satisfaction it once had. The silence of the room was suffocating, and Robert found himself thinking about the days before Lily's arrival in his life. It was hard to ignore how much he had changed since she had come into his life, but now, the demands of his business world were pulling him back to where he had been. He didn't want to go back to that version of himself. As he sat there, his phone buzzed on the desk, snapping him out of his thoughts. It was a message from Lily. Hi, Mr. Harrington. I just wanted to thank you again for everything. I've had my first exam results, and I passed with flying colors. I can't believe how much I've grown since coming here. I hope you're doing well. Robert smiled, his heart swelling with pride. He quickly typed a reply. I'm so proud of you, Lily. You're doing amazing, and I'm honored to be part of your journey. Keep pushing yourself, and don't let anything hold you back." He hit send and leaned back in his chair, reflecting on her words. It was in that moment that Robert realized just how much Lily's success meant to him. It wasn't just about her academic achievements. It was about what she represented. She was the symbol of everything he had been trying to create, a future where people weren't defined by their circumstances, but by their ability to rise above them. And that was something he needed to fight for, not just for Lily, but for himself as well. The next morning, Robert made a decision. He knew he needed to take a step back from the constant demands of the company. He couldn't continue down the path of endless work, pushing everyone around him, especially Lily, to succeed while sacrificing his own peace of mind. It was time for a change again. Robert began to restructure his priorities. He delegated more tasks at work, giving his trusted employees more responsibility. He made sure to take time for himself, taking breaks to enjoy life outside of business. And most importantly, he made sure to spend more time with Lily, even if it was just a phone call or a quick visit to her college. Over time, Robert found the balance he had been searching for. He was still a businessman, but now he was also a mentor, a friend, and a man who valued the relationships in his life above all else. His wealth and success were still important, but they no longer consumed him. As the months turned into years, Robert continued to watch Lily grow into the incredible young woman he had always known she could be. And as for himself, he had learned the greatest lesson of all. True success wasn't measured by the amount of money in his bank account or the size of his empire. It was measured by the impact he had on the people around him. Robert's life had come full circle. He had found the balance he had always sought. And for the first time, he felt at peace. The months continued to pass, and Robert's life seemed to be on the right track. He had found balance between his work, his personal life, and his growing bond with Lily. Things were falling into place, but there was still a lingering sense of uncertainty that Robert couldn't shake. He had spent so many years focused on building his empire that he never took the time to fully appreciate the quieter, simpler moments in life. That was until Lily came into the picture. She had reminded him of what truly mattered: relationships, growth, and kindness. But as much as Robert had grown, there was still one final test of his transformation: the past. Susan had left, and the divorce proceedings were still ongoing. Though Robert had moved on in many ways, there were moments when he found himself reflecting on his past mistakes. The feelings of guilt crept in now and then. He couldn't help but wonder if there had been another way, if he could have handled things differently. But these thoughts were fleeting, as he soon realized that he was no longer the man he used to be. The old Robert would have let guilt consume him. He would have remained trapped in the past, unable to move forward. But now, he had learned to forgive himself and embrace the present. One evening, as Robert sat in his study, sipping a glass of whiskey, his phone rang. It was a call from Lily, and he immediately felt a sense of warmth spread through him. They had been keeping in touch regularly, and it had become one of the highlights of his day. "Hi, Mr. Harrington." Lily's voice came through the phone, cheerful as always. "I just wanted to update you on something. I've been selected for an internship at a museum, and I'm so excited. This could be the start of everything I've dreamed of." Robert's heart swelled with pride. "That's fantastic, Lily. I knew you had it in you," he replied, feeling a rush of joy for her. "You're going to do amazing things, and this is just the beginning." As they continued to talk, Robert couldn't help but think about how far Lily had come. From a shy girl working in his mansion to a young woman on the brink of a promising career, her journey was a testament to the power of belief and opportunity. She had proven that no matter your circumstances, anything was possible with determination and hard work. As Robert hung up the phone, he couldn't help but feel a deep sense of gratitude. His life had been changed by Lily's presence, and it had also been changed by his decision to help her. In doing so, he had helped himself. He had learned what it meant to truly care for others, to lift them up, and to watch them rise. It wasn't just about giving someone a chance. It was about being part of their journey and supporting them along the way. The next day, Robert received a letter from the university where Lily had been accepted. It was an official acceptance letter for a summer research program. She had been selected to participate in a prestigious project that would further her education in history. The excitement in her letter was contagious, and Robert couldn't help but feel proud all over again. He immediately called her to congratulate her. "This is incredible, Lily," Robert said, his voice filled with pride. I knew you were capable of great things, and this is just the beginning. Keep pushing yourself, and you will go far. Lily's voice cracked with emotion as she responded. Thank you, Mr. Harrington. I wouldn't be here without you. You've shown me that I'm capable of more than I ever thought. Robert smiled, feeling a sense of fulfillment he had never known before. He had given Lily the tools to succeed, but she had done the work herself. She had taken the opportunity and run with it. And now, she was on her way to creating a future that was all her own. As Robert sat back in his chair, he reflected on how much his life had changed. It wasn't just about business, wealth, or status anymore. It was about the people who mattered, the ones you supported, and the ones who made life truly worth living. Robert had found his purpose, and it wasn't in the empire he had built. It was in the legacy he was helping to create, one that would outlive his wealth and success. It was a legacy built on kindness, respect, and the belief that everyone deserved a chance to succeed. As Robert watched Lily continue to thrive, he couldn't help but feel a deep sense of pride. She had accomplished so much in such a short time. The young girl who had once been shy and hidden in the background had now grown into a confident young woman, full of ambition and promise. Robert had played a part in that growth, but Lily's own hard work and determination were the real driving forces behind her success. The phone call he received from Lily that afternoon only confirmed what he already knew. Her future was bright. Mr. Harrington, she began, her voice full of excitement, I just wanted to let you know that I've been selected to present my research at a conference this summer. This is a huge opportunity for me. Robert's heart swelled with joy. He had always known that Lily had immense potential, but to hear her voice crack with emotion as she shared her success made him realize just how much she had grown. That's incredible, Lily, he replied, his voice filled with pride. You've worked so hard, and you deserve this. I'm so proud of you. After they hung up, Robert found himself reflecting on everything that had led them to this point. It wasn't just the opportunities he had given Lily, it was the transformation he had undergone as well. When he had first met her, he had been consumed with work, focused solely on building his empire. He had been blind to the importance of the people in his life, and he had let that consume him. But now, things were different. He had learned to see beyond the surface, to recognize the potential in others and give them the space to grow. The house that had once felt so empty was now filled with hope and possibility. Lily's success was his success, and as he watched her continue to excel, he realized that his life had become about so much more than business. It was about nurturing the people around him, about helping them reach their full potential. It was about making a difference in the world, one person at a time. As the days went on, Robert continued to support Lily in every way he could. He made sure she had the resources she needed for her research, and he helped her navigate the challenges of being a young woman in a field dominated by older, more experienced professionals. But beyond that, he remained a mentor, a friend, and a steady source of encouragement. Their relationship had evolved from one of employer and employee to one of mutual respect and trust. As the summer conference approached, Lily's nerves began to set in. She was excited, but the weight of the opportunity was not lost on her. She had worked so hard to get here, and now she was about to present her research in front of some of the most influential people in her field. One evening, as she sat in the study, practicing her presentation, Robert walked in. You're going to do great, he said, his voice full of assurance. You've put in the work, and you have the knowledge. Just remember to breathe and trust yourself. Lily looked up at him, her eyes filled with gratitude. Thank you, Mr. Harrington. I don't think I could have gotten this far without your support. Robert smiled warmly. I'm just a small part of this. You've earned every bit of success that comes your way. The day of the conference arrived, and Lily stood at the podium, her heart racing as she looked out at the audience. She had come so far from the shy girl who had once cleaned the floors of Robert's mansion. Now, she was a respected researcher, ready to share her work with the world. As she spoke, Robert sat in the audience, watching her with pride. Her words were confident, and her passion for her research was evident. When she finished, the room erupted into applause. Robert felt a lump in his throat as he watched Lily stand there, beaming with pride. She had done it. She had achieved something that once seemed impossible. After the presentation, Robert met her backstage. You were incredible, he said, his voice full of admiration. Lily smiled, her eyes bright with excitement. "Thank you, Mr. Harrington. I couldn't have done it without you." Robert placed a hand on her shoulder, his heart full. "You did it all on your own, Lily. You've earned everything." As they left the conference, Robert realized that the journey he had taken with Lily had changed him in ways he couldn't fully understand. He had found a new purpose in life, one that was about more than wealth or success. It was about giving others the chance to shine, about helping them realize their dreams. For the first time in a long while, Robert felt truly fulfilled. He knew that, no matter what happened in the future, he had made a difference. And that was worth more than anything he could have ever achieved on his own. Years passed, and Robert's life continued to evolve in ways he never could have imagined. The once cold and distant man had transformed into someone deeply invested in the lives of the people around him, especially Lily. She had grown into a remarkable young woman, not only in her academic field but also in her personal growth. The bond they had developed, initially built on a shared moment of kindness, had only grown stronger over time. Robert had become a mentor and a friend, someone Lily could always count on. But as the years went by, Robert also realized that his role in her life had shifted. It wasn't just about giving her opportunities anymore. It was about allowing her to stand on her own, to achieve success without relying on him. It was about seeing her become the person she was meant to be. Lily's success had far surpassed anyone's expectations. She had completed her college education with honors, and her research had begun to gain attention in her field. She had earned scholarships and recognition, and soon she was offered a prestigious position at a major historical institution. Robert was elated, but also quietly proud. He had watched her grow from a girl with limited opportunities into a leader in her field. One afternoon, Lily called Robert with news that took him by surprise. "Mr. Harrington," she said with a note of excitement, "I've been offered a chance to work on an international project. It's a huge opportunity, and I wanted to share it with you first." Robert's heart swelled. "That's incredible, Lily. I'm so proud of you. I knew you could do anything you set your mind to. I don't think I could have done any of this without you, Robert," she replied, her voice full of gratitude. "You gave me a chance when no one else did. You believed in me." Robert paused for a moment, reflecting on everything that had happened. It had been his belief in Lily, yes, but it had also been Lily's drive, her determination, and her willingness to take risks that had led her to this moment. "I only gave you the opportunity, Lily," he said, his voice soft but sincere. "You took it and made it yours. You've done all the work. I'm just proud to have been a part of your journey." It was then that Robert realized how much his life had changed. He had once been consumed by the pursuit of wealth, by the need to build a legacy of power and influence. But now, his legacy was not defined by his financial success. It was defined by the lives he had touched, by the difference he had made in the world through his relationships and his actions. As he watched Lily continue to rise in her career, Robert knew that his role in her life was nearing its natural conclusion. She no longer needed him in the same way she once had. She was standing on her own, ready to take on the world. And Robert was content. He had given her the tools to succeed, and she had used them to create a life that was uniquely her own. Robert had also come to understand that true success wasn't measured by wealth or achievements. It was about making a difference in the lives of others, about helping them realize their potential and reach their dreams. Robert's journey had been full of mistakes and growth, but in the end, he had found peace. He had found his purpose, not in the empire he had built, but in the relationships he had fostered and the impact he had made on the people around him. As Robert sat in his study one evening, reflecting on everything that had happened, he felt a sense of fulfillment that went beyond any business deal or financial success. His legacy was in the people he had helped, in the lives he had changed, and in the way he had learned to be truly present for those he cared about. Lily had taught him that. She had taught him that success was not just about what you could build or acquire. It was about the difference you made in the world and the love and respect you gave and received along the way. And in that, Robert found the greatest satisfaction of all. Discover the inspiring journey of a man who transformed his life and the life of a young girl from humble beginnings in this powerful millionaire story. This story follows Robert, a successful businessman, who learns that wealth isn't just about money, but about giving others a chance to succeed. In these millionaire stories, Robert helps a young maid's daughter named Lily find her true potential. giving her opportunities that change the course of her life. As Lily grows from a shy and invisible figure to a successful researcher, Robert realizes the true meaning of success, which isn't measured by material wealth, but by the lives you impact. This millionaire story explores the emotional journey of forgiveness, growth, and understanding as Robert navigates his own transformation. His actions inspire Lily to reach for her dreams, showing how one simple decision can create lasting change. These millionaire stories remind us that even the smallest acts of kindness can have the greatest impact, proving that true wealth lies in helping others. Witness how the life of a millionaire shifts when he learns to see people for who they truly are, not just by their status, and how his legacy becomes one of personal connection, respect, and the drive to make a difference in the lives of others.